One of the things that they're saying about our society right now is that we live in a post-truth world, which is sad, unfortunately, because if straying away from the truth is never a good thing. But it's not that we're really living in a post-truth world. It's that we've got an aspect of our country that just refuses to deal with the truth. And that, I think, is the definition of MAGA. Their leader, their God King, is a inveterate liar. I mean, the man is. The lies are just unbelievable. How America could have elected this child as president is really pathetic. And the rest of the world, I'm sure, is looking at us like we're morons. And a large part of this country is morons. But as I said, this is a post-truth world, and one of the signs of this is, and I'm sure a lot of you have noticed this, is Republicans don't answer questions anymore. You can't talk to Republicans anymore. Did you see Kash Patel in his congressional? Uh, he was in front of Congress about a week ago or whatever, and they were trying to get him to answer questions, and all he would do was dodge, obfuscate, start yelling, go off topic, and that's the way it is with MAGA as a whole. Nobody answers questions. I mean, you look at these podcasts and talk shows, and you get these people. You try to get them to answer a simple question. I just saw one, for instance, of this young kid, Gen Z kid. He's running the podcast. He's obviously very intelligent. And he was interviewing a pastor, a 31-year-old pastor, and trying to get him to explain why this Baptist pastor voted for Trump over Harris. And he literally got the guy to a point where the guy was like, well, I thought it was more moral to vote for Trump. Harris is too immoral. And one of his big reasons was he didn't want men going into women's spaces. And so the kid very brilliantly played the tape of Trump, talking about going into a girl's locker room, looking at young girls naked, but you don't want men going into women's spaces. And so the guy was confronted with this blatant hypocrisy. And in my opinion, if you're a pastor and you voted for Trump over Harris, you're not a good pastor. You're not reading the word of Christ. No. And you're confronted. You say you don't want men going into women's spaces, which, of course, he's thinking about trans issues. But Trump did something way worse than most trans people ever do. Going into a girl's locker room and looking at them without their clothes, no, that's horrible. And this pastor came up with all kinds of mental gymnastics to justify why it was still better to vote for Trump. And, of course, his other issue was abortion, which is another one that's very tricky. And the kid went into a nice breakdown of that, too. But this pastor, believe it or not, ultimately he hung up. And that's the thing. You see this over and over again. Republicans will not answer the questions because there is no justification for voting for Trump. The guy is totally egotistical. Fascism, blah, blah, blah. There's no reason to have voted for him. And as time goes on, you see MAGA, they're sticking with him over everything. I mean, the Jimmy Kimmel thing, for instance. Their team wants Kimmel off the air. They don't care about freedom of speech, which is the ultimate important issue. Nope. Our team hates Jimmy Kimmel. He needs to be off the air. Sinclair, nope, we're not going to run the show because, that's a loss for our team. So we're not running the show. We're not going to show it on our stations. This childish tribal nonsense is ultimately what's going to destroy America. And if you don't want to deal with the truth, if you can't answer simple yes or no questions, you have to do mental gymnastics to justify immoral viewpoints. You say, I don't like men going into women's spaces, and then Trump, we all know, does that, and you still say, yeah, but Kamala was more evil than Trump. He was the lesser of two evils. Man, there's no reality anymore. They're not dealing with the truth. I don't know what they're dealing with. That Kool-Aid, man, It must be some really good stuff. I'd like to drink some of it because it must really get you high. Because these people are not even trying to deal with reality, and America can't be this way. No, at least in the old Confederacy, that last Civil War we had, at least they could say, well, slavery may be bad, but it's helping our economy. At least they could have said that. At least they had a reason. But this fascism, I don't see how it benefits us. It benefits Trump and his rich cronies and all those other wealthy people. It doesn't benefit the rest of us. But MAGA,